So I know some of you out there are a little bit anxious about getting started with coded. You know, it's really important, but it might seem a little bit intimidating and daunting, and you have to spend a lot of time and effort studying an engineering degree or a computer science degree. I'm here to give you a really short intro to how you can get started with a really simple coding tool that's called an API, and how you can start using that today for some really exciting home projects. Now, there's so many things online about coding, and it's easy to get overwhelmed, but you have to start somewhere. Maybe you can start here, and then that'll help you provide some confidence and building blocks in the future. You might be an expert in another field and you want to be able to use coding and computer science to make your life a little bit easier, or have some fun at home. And the example we're going to use today is sending an SMS from your computer. And I'll show you why that's important in a little bit. So who am I to be telling you about all this? I'm a developer advocate at TelstraDev, which is Telstra's developer portal. It's our online API and IoT marketplace. And I was previously technical lead of the 5G Innovation Centre on the Gold Coast. So I'm an emerging technologist. I do have an engineering degree, but I want to show you guys how to get started without that. On a side note, I'm obsessed with South Korea, and I'm really keen on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and how I can use technology to help meet those goals. All right, speaking of goals, today's goal is to send yourself a text from the computer using a web API. Sounds pretty easy, but there's a lot of really great applications for this activity. Think about when you get a text from your favorite pizza shop that your delivery is on its way. That's using an API to send an SMS. Maybe you want to get an alert if the temperature in your house goes above 30 degrees to turn on the aircon. You can get that text using an API. That's just a couple of examples. So the tools we're going to use today can all be found on the Telstra Developer Portal using our free trial. So the Telstra Developer Portal is a marketplace for APIs and IoT. It's a home for software developers. And the reason why that's important is Telstra is first and foremost a networks provider. We've been around for over 100 years, and we have that infrastructure in the back end to be able to do things like send SMSs. What Telstra's doing is exposing some of those capabilities and information through APIs. Right, what is an API? Now, if you jump onto YouTube, there are thousands of videos to get you introduced to APIs. But pretty simply, it stands for Application Programming Interface. So an application, just an app. You could be using Facebook, you could be playing a game, you could be opening up your emails, that's an app. Programming, so that's the coding in the background. And interface, that's the bit that you are interfacing with, that you're experiencing with. So what an API does is it creates an interface between you and the programming going on in the app behind it. So behind an API, there's programs talking to each other, and you at the front end, using the API, you only interface with the bits that you need. So an example that I'll give is when you go to a restaurant and you order a lasagna, you don't need to know the ingredients, you don't need to know the recipe. All you need to know is how to order it and how to eat it. And that's what the API does for you. You need to order data and then use it. What happens in the background and where the data comes from, that's a whole other story. There's some really great examples of how we use APIs. If you're on a website and you read a news article, there's a little button at the bottom that would say share to Facebook. Now that's using a Facebook API. It's a little button that sends a message to Facebook. That's the application program on the back through that button interface. So I want to talk specifically about the messaging API. So we've jumped on to the Telstra Developer Portal. First thing we want to do is register an account. Just fill in your details here, first name, last name, email, mobile number. Once you authenticate your mobile number and your email address, then you'll get access to the account. And it's free. All right, so I've logged into the portal here. You can see my name up there, and you can see a couple of things that we're able to do. We can have a look at the different APIs. I'll just point to the community here. So most developer websites will have a community. We have the blog, where you can see some updates about the latest features on the website. We have a couple of tutorials here, where you can go to and find out a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of how to use some of these features. We also have forums where you can post your questions. And there's a lot of places like Stack Overflow where you can post questions to the public and they can answer them. But here, myself and the TelstraDev team come on here and answer the questions. So feel free to answer anything, big or small, and someone here will be able to help you out. We also have a support page here with things like frequently asked questions and our email address if you need any assistance. Okay, so an important part when you're working with an API is the documentation. So we're going to go into the messaging API, and it's going to bring up some instructions on how to get started with that API. And every API should have this documentation. gives you an introduction to what the API actually does. So it allows you to send and receive SMSs and MMSs. Now, the reason you'd want to use an API to do this rather than just texting with your phone is because you want to be able to automate it when you're verifying your bank details and they send you that text to verify your one-time password. There isn't a person on the other end sending a text out. They're using an API like this. When you set up your messaging API, you get a dedicated Australian mobile number which you can start sending and receiving messages to. So another example of when you'd want to receive a message is if your doctor sends out your appointment, hey, you've got an appointment tomorrow at 11 AM, can you please confirm yes or no? So you need to be able to actually get a response from the user. All right, the documentation will go through a couple of features that you can use. I'll point out a couple here that you need to know. Alphanumeric identifier, so when you get a text from, say, Centrelink, it will say Centrelink there, it won't be a mobile number, and that's the alphanumeric. We did sign up with a free trial. This is just an example of what you get if you actually sign up for a paid plan. All right, getting access to the API, we're already there. I'm going to skip past all of those down to getting started. All right, we have some SDKs, which are kind of like code bases that you can copy and paste. So they have some example apps here that you can just run, input your own details and start running. There's a couple of different programming languages here that you can download the code in. But today we're going to use the most simple tool for consuming and calling APIs, and that's called Postman. I'm going to click this Run in Postman button. We're going to download a program called Postman. Download Postman for Windows. I've actually already got it downloaded, so I'm going to open mine up. Ta-da! We've opened Postman. We've actually brought in the Telstra messaging API information that came from the website, which is great. And we have the first things to do to get started, so this is great. So we've gone to create our OAuth token. So have a look over here and you'll see that it says post. So there's a couple of different APIs that are out there. The two main ones are post and get. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you're doing a post API, you're going to send data somewhere. If you're doing a get API call, you're going to be getting data. So an example of a get call might be retrieve message. So someone has sent you an SMS, you need to get that with your API. Or maybe you want to see the status of an SMS you've already sent, you're going to get that. All right, first we're going to do a post. So we're in here, we've clicked that and it's opened up this generate OAuth token. So the reason why Postman is pretty cool is that this is what it actually is going to be sending, right? Some raw code. And sure, you can be typing in the code here, but the easiest way to do it is to have this one, form URL encoded, so that you can put the key and value pairs in. Okay, so the important bits that we need are the client ID and the client secret. And instead of pasting them here, because we're going to use them for a lot of different calls, what I'm going to do is add them to the messaging API environment here. Okay, so every time we use this environment, it's going to bring in my client secret and client IDs. So we're going to grab them from our TelstraDev website. So on the home page here, you'll see under develop, there's my apps and keys. Okay, here we are, my apps and keys. This is the app that was automatically created when I registered my account. Work with a key, I'm going to copy that. Here, I want the secret. All right, let's update those. Okay. Hopefully now, when I send this. All right, cool. So the first thing we've got is the status 200 OK. That's what happens when you send an API call and it's OK. You see it's all green there too. An example of something that is not OK would be a 400, but we can talk about those later. All right, so next thing we want to do is to create our virtual mobile number so we can start sending SMSs. So I'm going to go to create subscription and let's see what happens if we just send it. Ah, great, amazing. So when it's done, so this is also a post API call and this is just the address that it needs to send the call to, and this is kind of speaking to the TelstraDev messaging API gateway. So the output that we're getting is a destination address, and you can see that that's a mobile number. So that's our mobile number that we're going to use to send and receive text using the messaging API. So if I get my phone out now and I text that number, nothing's going to happen because we haven't told it to do anything yet. It also says here, the active days we have remaining is 29. So what that means is for 29 days, because we're on the free trial, this number is going to disappear and we can't use it anymore, but that's okay. All right, now we want to send a text message. Now we're going to open up this API call from the collection. Let's see what's in the body. All right, so we've got some pre-filled body here, which is great. There's no to number, so let's put in a to number. I'm going to remove this notify URL. We don't need it for now. We'll have a look at the messaging API documentation if we want to know how to use that later. And let's just say, hi, good day, and young, whatever. Send. Cool, we've got a 201. Again, check that documentation if you want to know what that means, but here it sort of says it's being fulfilled, and I can see the text has come through on my phone, which is great. Let's have a look here. We're having a look at the body response. So if this is what you've sent, this is what was being responded, I guess. So here's the to number. It'll say message waiting because at the moment that we sent it, it hasn't sent yet, but really it was sent. Here's the message ID, which will be useful when you're trying to debug. If you have some errors with your messages, then the TelstraDev team can help debug them. It knows it was sent to Australia and it was an SMS. Done. Easy. You send a text to yourself. You use an API, you've got a developer portal, and now you can go do amazing things. I hope this tutorial gave you an idea of how easy it can be to get started with some simple code. As you can see here, I didn't actually type any code. Everything was already done for me. There's places like GitHub where you can actually just copy and paste other people's code. That's not cheating, that's just being efficient. So some of the other things that we could try next time is sending MMS. So you can head into the TelstraDev website to find out more about sending MMS. We can send SMS to multiple people at once, so we can send one message out to 10 people. Now you can go online and find some other free APIs and use Postman to use them. Another really great use of APIs is to get information about the weather. So imagine if you had a little light board and all it said was the temperature today. That would be using an API, right? You wouldn't need to have a temperature sensor. You'd be able to do a one-line call to a weather API to be able to get the weather in your postcode. How easy is that? You can start integrating these in other more complex apps, and now you know how they work. You can maybe go into your work, and not that you have to do all this coding yourself, but you can actually request that things are done more efficiently. So if you're sending out manual emails every single day to a bunch of people, you think, shouldn't there be an easy way to do this? And that's where APIs can come in. Thank you for following along. I'd love to hear what you guys get up to on your API journey, and let me know if there's something in particular that you want to hear about.